Hello, welcome to the session. On behalf of Export Promotion Council for Handicrafts, I am SN Panigrahi, presenting on the subject Customs Procedures and Formalities for Export of Handicraft Products. Let us first introduce myself. I am an international corporate trainer, mentor, and author. I have wide experience, around 30 years in the corporate world, in the areas of project management, contract management, Lean Six Sigma, supply chain management, procurement, logistics, export and imports, indirect taxes, GST, etc. I have made more than 150 workshops globally and published over 500 articles. Also published more than 60 YouTube presentations and 70 slideshows. I am basically electrical engineer with MBA and PG diploma in ISO 9000 and TPM. 30 years in the corporate world experience. I am a certified PMP from PMI USA and become PMI India champion in 2016. I am also a certified Lean Six Sigma green belt and black belt. I have been trained in Center for Organizational Development for 3.5 years on strategy and leadership. I have many other certifications, include I am a judge consultant certified by QCI MSME, Government of India. I am a member Board of Studies, Indian Institute of Materials Management, member Indirect Tax Committee and International Trade in Federation Telangana Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I am also an empaneled faculty in National Institute of MSME and MSME TDC PPDC. Let us now discuss about the subject. Before going, let us understand what is handicraft products, the definition. The definition is handicraft products are items or products produced through skills that are manual, with or without mechanical or electrical or other processes, which appeals to the eye due to the characteristics of being artistic or aesthetics or creative or ethnic or being representative of cultural or religious or social symbols or practices, whether traditional or contemporary. These items or products may or may not have a functional utility and can be used as a decorative items or gift. So, before going to details of export procedures, customs related, let us understand basic steps in starting a business in export. There are 6 steps. One is setting up of the business or organization. Second is what to export related to product. Third is where to export, means about the market or region or the country. Then how to export or getting the orders first, then the fulfilling export orders, then payment realization. These are the basic 6 steps for the starting of any export business. Then let us understand in one seat glance what where and how to export or start the export business. Let us understand. First is setting up of organization, then what to export, where to export, how to get export orders, executing export orders, then payment realization. In the organization setting up, that is a formal setting up of the organization, then obtaining PAN, then open a bank account, preferably current account. In the branch, dealing with foreign exchange, then obtain IEC code number from DCFT, then become a member through RCMC, that is the registration cum membership certificate of a concerned export promotion council. For any export and import business, GST registration also a mandatory. So one has to register with GST, and customs registration with AD means authorized dealer, means that bank details has to be registered with the customs from which we want to export. The next is selecting the product or service. First we have to see whether the product is freely exportable. Is there any restriction or prohibition from the originating country, means from India? Then also we have to understand, is there any restrictions in the importing country? Then understand about the demand of the product, what are the supply trends, competition, and finally, considering all the aspects, select the product based on your competitiveness. Then where to export is related to the market and finding the buyers, which country to go, understand the market, make a market research, and make business trips if possible. Understand level of competition and competitors' offerings. Then find a distributor, agent, or wholesaler if any, or you want to directly engage with this customer overseas. Then getting the orders. First receiving the enquiries, sending the offers, samples if required, negotiate the prices, various terms and conditions like delivery terms, payment terms, etc. Then thoroughly understand all the terms what you are negotiated, and understand whether the order is in agreement with all the terms what you are agreed upon. Then confirm the order if it is agreed. Then related to payments, if in advance payment you may receive the advance payment, or in case of letter of credit you may receive the letter of credit through bank. Then export execution, that is executing the order. First is, if you are merchant exporter, you have to source the goods. If you are manufacturer, you have to start the producing the goods. Then check quality and other documentary requirements and comply with them. Engage customs house agent or any forwarder for services like customs, port and shipping formalities. Then export. After export, get the shipping documents like shipping bill, bill of lading or airway bill, etc. Then final step is payment realization, that is post-export formality. Once you are exported, intimate to the customer about your exports and send documents or present the documents to the bank. Then realize your export proceedings. Then finally is lessons learned, because it is your endeavor always in experience, and every experience is counts for betterment or corrections. Therefore, lessons learned is final step. And generally I present this to all my audience for how to export a single one-sheet glance about all the activities involved in export. Next, let us understand steps broadly. What are the steps involved in export market? First is develop your strategy about your product selection, about your market selection, and your channels, distribution channels, how you want to go about, whether directly with the interact with the customers and sell the product direct to the customers, or through agents, distributors, or any other means. Also, you decide about your pricing strategy and your promotional strategies. Then review, understand export regulations in originating country. For example, from India, what are the regulations are available in India, or what are the restrictions and regulations in importing country, also understand. After that, negotiate, understanding all the terms and conditions, finalize the contract. Then source or prepare your goods for shipment, complete your export documentation and other formalities. Then negotiate the documents in bank for getting the payments. Now just brief about the export readiness, because this is most important aspect for any new exporter or new entrepreneur entering into the export arena. Identify the products or services which you are conversant with, which you are familiarity with, where you can able to source with more competitiveness. Then identify the market, overseas market, particular regions which you want to sell the products. Then evaluate distribution, various channels, either whether directly you want to export or through agents, distributors, etc. Then about the pricing, your cost of procurement, cost of documentation, various regulatory costs, customs and port related expenses, shipping and transportation related expenses, and various services which you are availing and cost of those. Understand those costs, accordingly make the pricing. While you are offering the price, also consider the factors like delivery terms, means that is Incoterms, and payment terms and other regulatory requirements, and accordingly you make the pricing. The next one is formalizing export formalities, like what are the shipping methods, delivery terms, documentation, export finance, etc. Once you are conversant with all these things, then you become ready for export. So understanding all these aspects are very important for any export venture. Now roll out export business. Identify at least 1 or 2 countries or 3 countries where you have the best market potential for your product. Then review the market factors for each of the country. and also research for the more data information about your product specific to those countries relevant. And rate is on a 1 to 5 scale, and then prioritize your market or your country or regions where you want to export. Then let us understand various government bodies which are supporting and regulating the export-import business. First is Ministry of Commerce and Industry, and it is a nodal authority for trade facilitating, developing and regulating trade matters related to multilateral or bilateral commercial relationships. Under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, DGFT, which is Director General of Foreign Trade, is responsible for formulation of guidelines and principles for import and exports. And then under Ministry of Finance, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, CBIC. Earlier it has been called CBEC, Central Board of Excise and Customs, but now it is called as CBIC, comes under Ministry of Commerce. It is an authority to handle customs duty related matters and physical movement of cargo inward and outward from the country. And its authority about all customs related aspects. The publications are Customs Act 1962, Customs Tariff Act 1975, IGST Act 2017. Then Reserve Bank of India is a monetary authority managing foreign exchange, facilitate external trade, payments and promote orderly development and maintenance of foreign exchange in India. And FEMA is an act regulating, controlling and guiding about the import and export transactions for the payments, currency and etc. Broadly, let us understand various organizations supporting the export. One is the DGFT, as we have already discussed. Then GST or customs. Then EPC means Export Promotion Councils. These Export Promotion Councils are product specific, like Pharmaceutical Export Promotion Council, Engineering Export Promotion Council, Promotion Council for Handicrafts, etc. So these are product specific export promotion councils. And also there is commodity boards like tea board, coffee boards, tobacco board, etc. And FIFO is nodal agency for all types of products. Then there is various other organizations like port authorities, dry port like ICD, means Inland Container Depot. Then CFS, Container Freight Station. Then shipping or airlines. Then export inspection agencies like EIC, banks, RBI, ECGC, Export Credit Guarantee Corporation. Then educational bodies like IIFT, IIP. IIFT means Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, IIP Indian Institute of Packaging. Then various Chamber of Commerces and trade bodies also help and promote exports. Then ITPO, Indian Trade Promotion Organization. This is for various types of exhibitions. And then ITP, Indian Trade Portal, providing information about import and exports. Then DGTR, then QCI, BIS, DGCIS. These are related to quality standards and statistics. DGCIS is Director General Commercial Intelligence and Statistics. So these are some of the organizations supporting the exporters. Then let us have some introduction to foreign trade policy published by DGFT. And DGFT is formed under Foreign Trade Development and Regulation Act 1992, and its functions are mainly for export promotion, issuance of and monitoring of certificates and authorizations, trade facilitation, grievance redressal, etc. And it publishes Foreign Trade Policy, Handbook of Procedures, Volume 1 and Volume 2, and also ITC HS classification of export and imports of goods. And foreign trade policy, the current policy is 2015-20, which was originally valid up to 31st March 2020, and then it is extended via this notification up to 31st March 2021. The foreign trade policy has 9 chapters. These are the various chapters. Then let us understand one important aspect about the export. This is ITC HS codes published by the DGFT. HS code means Harmonized System Codes for the Product Classification, published by World Customs Organization. These codes up to 6-digit level are uniform across the world. All the signatory countries, it is equally applicable. Additionally, 4 digits are optional. These are country specific, and India is opted additional 2 more digits. Therefore, 6 common digits plus 2 digits comes to 8 digits. For export or import, these 8-digit code is mandatory to mention in all the documents related to, for example, export. In the invoice as well as in shipping bill, we have to mention 8-digit ITC HS code. Similarly, for import, at the time of filing the bill of entry, along with the description of the goods imported, we have to mention 8-digit code. This is the product classification code. DGFT is published this ITC HS code. Means ITC means Indian Trade Classification, aligned with harmonized codes, and it has 2 schedules. The first schedule is Schedule 1 is for imports, and then Schedule 2 for export. And in the ITC HS, broadly it covers 4 areas: whether the goods are freely allowed for export or import. Freely means without any requirement of permissions, authorizations or licenses. Then whether the goods required any restriction means permissions, or the goods are prohibited, or goods are channelized through certain agencies like STC and MMTC, State Trading Corporation, or Mines and Mineral Trade Corporation. So these are the 4 classifications. Against each of the products, against particular HS code, we had to see whether these products are freely allowed, or restricted, prohibited, or channelized. Mostly, almost like more than 95% of the products are freely allowed, but there are certain items are restricted, therefore it requires specific permission from DGFT or concerned authorities. For example, during the coronavirus situation, considering the domestic demand, some of the medical equipments and medicines are restricted for export. Similarly, some months back, onions also restricted for export, considering the domestic scarcity or demand. So these restrictions have been done considering the various situations in the domestic market, and time to time these have been reviewed, certain times relaxed, and again certain times restricted. And there are certain items, prohibited items, which you can't export or import. Then let us understand what are the HS codes for handicraft products. And as I told you, for each of the item description, there should be a classified code. And as per the ITC HS, it is 8-digit code. For example, agarbatti, the code is 33074100. The first two digits, that 33 indicate the chapter. Then additionally 07, the additional code, 2 digits, sub-chapter level. Then other codes are related to specific to the product. Similarly, like if you see coir mats, the code is 46012010. And for palm leaf basket, for example, 46021911. Like this, each of the products there is a corresponding HS code which you have to mention in the corresponding import means in a bill of entry, in export means shipping bill we have to mention up to 8-digit level. These are the different codes for the handicraft products. Then let us understand the customs clearance procedure, which is the subject matter now. CBIC, as I already told you, Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, comes under Ministry of Finance, Government of India, under the Department of Revenue, and its main functions are formulation of policy concerning the levy and collection of customs duty, GST, central excise duties, prevention of smuggling, and administration of matters relating to customs, GST, central excise, also related to narcotics to the extent under the CBIC purview. Administratively, there are 4 departments are there, sections are there. One is Customs House, the other GST Commissionerates, then Customs Preventive Commissionerates, then Central Revenue Control Laboratory. So let us understand little bit about the functions of the customs authorities. One is collection of customs duties under the Customs Act 1962 and Customs Tariff Act 1975. Then export cargo, baggage, postal articles, and its arrival and departure of the vessels, aircrafts, etc. Then discharge of agency functions and enforcing prohibitions and restrictions on import and exports under various legal enactments. Then prevention of smuggling. Then international passenger clearances. Now, once we have understood various functions, let us understand further also that being a member of the World Customs Organization, Indian Customs has adopted various international customs conventions and procedures, including the revised Kyoto Convention, harmonized classification system, GATT-based valuation, etc. Now let us understand the one major function of the customs is levy of the customs duty. Entry number 83 of List 1 to Schedule 7 of Constitution of India empowers the Union government, means central government, to legislate and collect duties on imports and exports. Accordingly, Customs Act 1962 and Customs Tariff Act 1975 are enacted. In the Customs Tariff Act 1975, there are two schedules. First schedule related to duty on import and second schedule related to duty on export. Means each of the item with assigned harmonized system of commodity classification in HS code. The prescribed rate of duties are being mentioned in case of import in the schedule for first schedule, whereas in case of export in the second schedule. The duties levied may be either specific duties or it is ad valorem basis, or it is combination of both specific and ad valorem. Then let us understand briefly about this customs valuation. Means one is the customs duty collection. The duty is the rate is calculated on the value of the goods, and the valuation is given in section 14 under 14 of the Customs Act 1962, and further there are two rules are there. Rules means practical procedures following the act. For import, there is a customs valuation determination of value of imported goods, rules 2007, and for export there is a customs valuation determination of value of goods, export goods, rules 2007. So based on this, the customs valuation is been done, and next is about this sea cargo manifest and transshipment regulation, and through these notifications shown here, this has been notified that Sea Cargo Manifest and Transshipment Regulation 2018 is notified, which comes into force from the 1st of March 2019. This regulation replaces earlier Import Manifest Regulation 1971 and Export Manifest Regulation 1976, and transportation of goods through Foreign Territory Regulation 1965. With the implementation of this Sea Cargo Manifest and Transshipment Regulation 2018, Indian entity representing the master of the vessel shall be registered with this Indian Customs, and as per the regulation, the authorized sea carrier or the authorized sea agent shall submit an arrival manifesto electronically prior to departure of the last port, or departure manifest electronically before departure from the Indian port. Means for the two aspects are there. One is about the arrival manifest. This is for import. Earlier it has been called as Import General Manifest IGM. Under this section 30 of this Customs Act 1962, the IGM, or now the new name is Arrival Manifest, has to be submitted electronically by the authorized sea carrier or authorized sea carrier agent, and this manifest has to be presented prior to departure from the last port. That means, for example, a vessel carrying the cargo leaving from the Rotterdam port, the manifesto has to be presented to the Indian Customs authorities before the vessel is leaving Rotterdam port to any Indian port, that is JNPT for example. Means before leaving the Rotterdam port, the carrier or his agent has to present arrival manifesto to the customs authorities. The next one is departure manifest. Earlier it has been called Export General Manifest EGM, and this is as per the section 41 of the Customs Act 1962. Before departure from the Indian port, the authorized sea carrier or authorized sea carrier agent must submit a departure manifesto electronically to the customs. So we understood these aspects for arrival and for the departure. Now let us understand about the self-assessment of the imported and exported goods with the customs authorities. As per the section 17 of the Customs Act 1962, it is enabling the importer or the exporter to declare on self-assessment the documents. There are basically two document declarations are there. One is for import, one is for export. So for entry of goods for importation, under section 46 of the Customs Act 1962, a bill of entry has to be presented to the customs authorities, and in the bill of entry, the assessment can be made on self-assessment basis under section 17 of the Customs Act 1962. The assessment related to the valuation, the correct classification, the applicable rate of duty, any benefits of exemptions under various notifications, if any, that has to be mentioned on self-assessment basis in the bill of entry. Similarly, for exportation, under section 50 of the Customs Act 1962, a shipping bill has to be presented on self-assessment basis for its value, for its duty, if any applicable, for its classification like HS classification. And in case of land export, For example, we are exporting to Bangladesh or Nepal, for example, then bill of export has to be presented. And this bill of entry and shipping bill or bill of export, these may be made on self-assessment basis. Then there is a risk management system is introduced in the customs valuation. Based on this, the verification will be done on selective basis only under RMS, which not only provides assured facilitation to those importers having good track record, and through RMS only selective basis the consignments on random based on the system, means computer selection, will be done for the inspection. All other cargo can be made on self-assessment, and straight away it will be facilitated for clearance without assessment and examination, and of course on payment of applicable duty if any. Means it is ease of doing business. All consignments are not examined or assessed for valuations, but only on the selective basis, randomly some consignments are being selected for the examination based on the random system based. No manual or physical interface is allowed. So under section 18 of the Customs Act, provisional assessment also been allowed if there is any dispute related to the classification, related to value, or related to duty applicable, or any such dispute. The assessee can make provisional assessment and get the clearance subject to furnishing of security as deemed fit by the proper officer. Then one more facilitation for ease of doing business is eSanchit. This is an online platform for paperless processing, uploading of the documents. Means there is no physical hard copies need to be presented to the service center or any of the customs officials. Online through eSanchit, means that is through IceGate, you can submit scanned copies in JSON file, and there is no need for hard copies to submit. Next, let's further understand about the Sanchit. The facilitation further enabled for the other related government agencies, that's called participating government agencies. The facilities now available for them also, like Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, FASI, Plant Quarantine, Animal Quarantine, Drug Controller, Wildlife Control Bureau, and Textile Committee, and any approvals or any certifications required from these agencies also will be done through online platform eSanchit, and it will reduce the interface with various governmental agencies, therefore reduce the precious time and cost of doing business in India. So these are basically, we have understood about this basic customs aspects. Now let us understand little bit about GST, because GST is closely related to the customs export and import also. As we told you, it is mandatory for any importer or exporter to have a GST registration. Then how GST functions, let us briefly understand. GST is a multi-point taxation. That means at each stage of the supply, GST is applicable. It is a value-added tax. That means only on value addition the tax will be applicable. Let me clarify this aspect. Suppose you want to purchase an item, say it is 100 rupees, where you have paid tax at the rate of 5%, means 5, and you have a further business and you want to supply at 150 rupees, for example, then you are entitled to take the credit of 5, means the tax whatever you have paid on your purchases, you can take a credit that is called input tax credit, ITC, and this input tax credit can be adjusted towards your liability for your supply, outward supply. Suppose your outward supply is 150 and there the tax is at the 5% rate is 7.5, then you can, while paying the 7.5 to the government, you can adjust the 5 which you have taken as a ITC credit, and net payment of 2.5 only you have to pay. So ITC sequestration is allowed of business. If you are supplying any exempted goods, then ITC is not allowed. And also, if you don't have any furtherance of business, like your end consumer, then ITC will not be available. So this is the basic concept about this GST. Now let us move for the GST rates which are applicable for handicraft products. There are some goods at the nil rate, and there are certain goods at 3% and others are 5%, and mostly goods are falling into 12% category, and there are some goods at 18% and 28% also. And these are some of the GST rates for the handicraft products. For example, the candles, it attracts 12%, and mats, for example, it attracts 5%. Coir articles or articles made of paper, match, also 5%. Carpets, of course, is also 5%. Then there are certain items which are attracting 12%, like tableware or kitchenware of clay. This attracts 12%. Then bangles, that silver filigree works 3%. Handmade imitation jewelry, for example, is 3%. Like that, some of the items are there. And there are certain items like shown here are nil also. Like bangles, imitation jewelry is nil. Then clay articles of tableware and kitchenware also nil. Then wood deities is a nil. And for example, smoking pipes, because it's like demerit items, are the cigar and cigarette holders are 28%. Then buttons of base metal is 18%. So let us understand now definition of export as per the GST Act. Export of the goods means taking the goods out of India to a place outside India. That is treated as export. Means that goods physically has to move from India to outside India. For example, you are bringing the goods from China, for example, and sending the goods to, for example, Sri Lanka. Then since the goods are not moving from India, it's not treated an export. I will again explain the same concept. For example, you have received an order from US, and after getting the export order, you started sourcing from China and directly you ask the Chinese partner to export from China to US, therefore you have fulfilled the contractual obligation. You realize the money also, but it will not be treated as an export. Since the goods are not leaving from India to a place outside India, it is not export. So let us confine our discussion here only for export of goods. So we are not discussing about export services. Now further, let us understand how the export of goods are being treated in GST. It is treated as interstate transaction. That means export or import of goods will be treated as interstate transaction. Therefore, as per the section 24 of the GST Act, CGST Act, registration under GST is mandatory, and if any applicable tax, the IGST has to be applicable. For import or export of goods, IGST is applicable. Now let us understand the zero rated concept. As per the section 16.1 of the IGST Act, zero rated means export of goods or services. Export of goods means, I told very clearly, goods leaving from India, physically leaving from India to outside India is called export of goods. Then supply to SEZ or SEZ developer also treated as zero rated. Then what is the importance of zero rated? I tell you. In case of zero rated, you will be allowed to take the ITC, means input tax credit. Whereas in case of nil rated or exempted goods, you are not entitled. Means suppose you are exporting the goods which are taxable goods, then you are entitled to take the ITC, means whatever you have purchased the goods, on that whatever taxes you have paid, you are entitled to take the ITC. Even though such goods are exempted, like bangles, imaginary jewelries, imitation jewelries, those are exempted goods. Even those exempted goods also you are exporting, you are entitled to take the ITC, means input tax credit. Then for export, we have two options. One is export without payment of tax. The other one is on payment of tax. The first one, without payment of tax, then you have to execute LUT or bond as per the format that GST RFT 11. You have to execute LUT. LUT means letter of undertaking. It is valid for one financial year, means from April to March, and every new year, means from the April 1st, you have to take the new LUT. Now, for example, as an exporter, you require certain inward supplies, inputs you have purchased, on that GST is paid. You are entitled to take the ITC, as just now we have discussed. And in the first option, for example, you are exporting without payment of tax under LUT, then there may be chances that your ITC remain accumulated, unutilized, and those unutilized ITC you can claim as ITC refund. For that, you have to file a separate application, RFT 01A. Now let us understand about the second option. You want to export on payment of IGST. Since you have taken ITC, that input tax credit can be utilized towards payment of IGST. Now whatever you have paid the IGST, the entire amount of IGST can be claimed as a refund. And in case of export of goods, then there is no need for separate application, whereas in case of services and supplies to SEZ, of course you have to file a separate application. And for the handicraft products, because it's goods export, I advise to go with on payment of tax. Therefore it is very simple. You need not to file any separate application, and your refund of the IGST will be automatically deposited to your bank account. Now let us understand about the export procedure, customs procedure. The basic steps involved in the export, let us understand first. First, you are receiving certain enquiries, sending offers, then negotiated. Then you have received the order or the contract. Then you assess the creditworthy of the customer, and then verify whether the export order is in line with your agreement or not. Then acknowledge and take steps further. Receive the payments or LC. Then obtain pre-shipment finance. The pre-shipment finance are also allowed, and in case of MSME, there is 5% subversion also allowed, that I will discuss later. Then source or arrange for the manufacture of the goods. Then get the goods ready with proper packing and marking. Appoint CHA or forwarder for taking the services of the customs formalities or port formalities. Then arrange pre-shipment inspection if required. Then reservation of shipping space. Then prepare necessary documents and dispatch the goods. And also, if insurance is required, you have to take the insurance policy. Then goods may be received at the customs port. Then customs clearance. Then obtain shipping bill or bill of lading or airway bill. Negotiate the documents in the bank. Realize the export proceedings. These are broadly the steps involved in export procedure. Then export clearance in the customs, let us briefly understand. One time customs registration is required with your IEC code number and AD number. IEC code and AD you have to register with customs. Then after this, if any export promotion schemes also there, like advance authorization or EPCG, those schemes also has to be registered with the customs authorities. Then proceed with processing of the customs, the filing of the shipping bill. First is filing of the declaration, that is shipping bill, in EDI, means electronic data exchange interchange, that is EDI. And generally these services have been done by your CHA, means customs house agent will do this one. He will file on your behalf this filing of the shipping bill. Then a checklist is generated after filing the shipping bill from the ICE gate. Then data is submitted to the system service center, and the data submission, earlier it was hard copy, but now they have given provision because of the coronavirus. Thus, this can be submitted online only. There is no need for physical submission of the data. Then shipping bill number is generated automatically by the system, and your goods also arrives at the dock, means port area. Then system as we are already discussed, RMS means risk management system. Randomly, this system means the computer system takes the consignments on random, which goes for the inspection. Otherwise, almost like 90% goes without any examination of or other assessment. All these are automatically assessed, examined, and it is going for. If it is any item comes under RMS, then examination will be done. After the examination, then let export order is been passed. After export order is been passed, then the carrier takes the cargo, and after the let export order, shipping bill will be generated, and based on the carrier's movement, they may issue bill of lading or airway bill by the shipping line or airline. Now the customs cargo, there is facilities are there. Factory stuffing. For that, one-time approval you have to take for the GST official for factory stuffing. Factory stuffing is allowed for FCL containers, means full container load only cargos. And if it is less than container cargo loads are there, then you have to move the consignment to the dock or CFS or ICD for stuffing. In case of air cargo, then air cargo carting warehouse you have to take their goods. Then export clearance for factory stuffing. First you have to intimate to the superintendent of customs for stuffing of the cargo from factory. Take one-time permission. Then empty containers picks up from the this container yard or ICD for transported to the your factory. Then stuff the container self-sealing. Then export documents prepare. Then load and seal the containers. Move to the port. Then shipping bill will be filed. Customs clearance completes. Then let export order is given. Then consignment can move to the vessel. So this is broadly about the customs clearance procedure for factory stuffing of the containers. And further adoption of the new technology, they made RFID, that is e-sealing based self-sealing procedure. According to this, the containers are sealed by the RFID enabled e-seal. In the e-seal system, first you have to go with one-time permission for the approval. Then you have to purchase the e-seals, RFID enabled e-seal from the specified vendors. Those vendors are being authorized by the customs authorities through a gazette notification, and we have to purchase only through those specified vendors. Then the consignment, the empty container moves to the factory. In the factory, the stuffing will be done. Before that, intimation has to be given to the concerned authorities about this self-sealing. Means your GST concerned authority, you have to give the intimation. It's only just intimation, there is no need for any acknowledgement. Then prepare and declare a serial number of e-seal in the shipping bill, and feed all the concerned data in the vendor's portal where from you purchase the e-seal. For each e-seal, there is a specific unique number and this is enabled with RFID, means radio frequency identifier, and you have to go to the portal of the vendor. Against that e-seal number, you have to feed all the details about your consignment, like your invoice, shipping bill number, date, and etc. other details like your IEC code, shipping bill number, date, e-seal number, date and time of sealing, customs port, then container number, trailer number, etc. you have to mention in this portal. Then the container moves to the yard or the port, then automatically the data will be collected by the system because of the RFID seal. The data transmitted directly to the system of the customs, and based on the RMS, the customs will clear the consignment, then let export order is given, then container will go for the loading onto the vessel. So this is the RFID sealing procedure. Then related to export documents, there are commercial documents which are required between the two contracting parties. Then there are certain regulatory documents as per the government laws or both of the import and export countries. Then about these principal documents are like the commercial invoice, packing list, certificate of origin, certificate of inspection, then incident certificate, then bill of exchange, then bill of lading. All these are principal documents for export, and there are certain corresponding auxiliary documents which are required to prepare the principal documents, like pro forma invoice, for example. Prior to your transaction for opening of LC or advance payment, pro forma invoice has been done, and this is some content which are required, essential requirement in the export invoice as per the section 31 of the CGST Act and Rule 46. These are the contents supposed to mention in the invoice. A sample invoice is being shown here. Here the details about at the top we have to mention whether we are opting for, because I told you there are two options, on payment of tax or without payment of tax you can clear the export consignments. So those options you have to mention at the top. Then your GST number and your address, name, etc. has to mention here, and also your buyer's name, or any consignee is different from the buyer, then that consignee name also has to mention. Then port details, the originating port as well as the loading port and discharge port, all the details has to be mentioned. Then against of the each of the description corresponding that product description, there is a corresponding HSN code has to be mentioned, quantity, then unit of measurement, and then value, price and value has to be declared. In case you are sending the goods on payment of tax, so tax calculation also to be done, that is IGST calculation has to be made here. So this we have already discussed. Then e-way bill also a mandatory requirement if your value of the consignment is more than 50,000 rupees, and either you had to make, or your assigned transporter also can make the e-way bill only when your consignment value is more than 50,000. In case of exempted goods, of course there is no need for e-way bill. E-way bill, there is two parts, one in the transaction related, another transport related. In the transport related, the vehicle number, the transport document number and other details has to be mentioned. Then in the export there are broadly three types of transport documents are involved. One is airway bill. In case of air freight, the consignment is exported by air. Then airway bill is the title of goods. These are called title of goods. And then bill of lading in case of sea freight. Then LR in case of road transport. And shipping bills, for example, these are been exported through sea route. There are the various types of shipping bills are there. One is pre-shipping bill, means you are not availing any of the benefits like drawback or any other dutiable shipments. Then it's pre-shipping bill. Then there is a dutiable shipping bill, where in case for export consignment any duty is applicable, then dutiable shipment, the shipping bill has to be filed. Then drawback shipping bill, if you are taking any drawback benefits, which we'll discuss later. Then shipping bill for ex-bond, means already your bonded material, customs bonded material you are exporting, then ex-bond shipping bill. Then coastal shipping bill means within India, for example, from JNPT port to the Cochin port, you want to transport the consignment, then coastal shipping bill is required. Then shipping bills, after the let export order is been released, then shipping bill can be taken. And shipping bill, there are four shipping bill copies are there. For example, customs copy, customs retain the copy, shipping bill. Then exporter's copy, exchange control copy, then export promotion copy, which is optional if you are exporting under certain specified schemes, export promotion schemes, then it is required. And these now, with the advancement of technology, with the digitalization, no more required to submit electronically, means the hard copies, but it is electronically submitted, transmitted directly. For example, this exchange control copy, earlier physically hard copy has to be submitted to the bank, but now there is no need for hard copy submission. Automatically from EDI system of the customs, it transmitted to the banks. Similarly to the DGFT also, the customs export promotion copy will be going to the DGFT authorities automatically. So there is no need for printing of the hard copies. Then let us understand little bit about merchant exports, because most of the handicraft goods are exported through merchant exporters. So let us understand the concept of merchant export. In the merchant export, the facility benefits are given under this notification shown above here. The merchant exporters can avail the concessional rate of tax, that is only 0.1% of the tax he can pay and procure the goods. But there are certain conditions are there. What is this we'll discuss. For example, the merchant exporter who is registered with Export Promotion Council, for example, the merchant exporter of handicrafts, he is registered with, for example, with Export Promotion Council for handicrafts, then he is entitled to avail this benefit of procuring the goods from the registered suppliers at 0.1% of the tax. If it is within the state, then he has to pay 0.05% CGST and 0.05% SGST. If it is interstate, then he has to pay 0.1% IGST. After the procurement of the goods, the merchant exporter is supposed to export within 90 days. That is the condition. And further conditions I'll tell you. The merchant exporter has to place a purchase order on the registered supplier, and a copy of that purchase order has to be sent to jurisdictional tax officer, and then the supply of the goods by the registered supplier to the merchant exporter at the 0.1% tax rate, when GST applicable is 0.1%. Then the merchant exporter, after getting the material, he has to export within 90 days. After export, he has to submit a copy of the shipping bill or bill of export plus proof of EGM, means export general manifesto or export report, has to be submitted to the registered supplier. Then only he will be entitled for his concessional rate of supply. And a copy also has to be submitted to the jurisdictional tax officer. In case, for example, the registered merchant exporter is not submitted or exported within 90 days, then the registered supplier has to make payment, the differential payment, because he is no more entitled for the concessional rate. Therefore, the differential payment of the tax has to be made along with interest. And once he adopted this approach, this concessional facility, then the merchant exporter has to export under LUT without payment of tax only. He will not be entitled for the other option of exporting on payment of IGST. This option is not available to them. Then let us understand briefly about the export benefits. One is a very important benefit is MEIS, means Mercantile Export from India scheme. This is under the Chapter 3 of the Foreign Trade Policy. This is a purely an incentive scheme. This is to offset infrastructural inefficiencies and associated other costs involved in the export of goods. And the next one is duty drawback. This is as per the Section 75 of Customs Act 1962. This is aims to provide refund of recoupment of customs and excise duties paid on inputs and raw materials for manufacture of export goods. Generally, the duty drawbacks are given as per the specified rates of AIR, means all industry rate. This is published by the customs authorities and annually been revised. Then there is another means facility, or this is available is advance authorization. That is under Chapter 4 of the Foreign Trade Policy. Based on the your customs means your export product, there are CION norms are there, published by the DGFT. CION norms means Standard Input Output Norms. CION means SION, Standard Input Output Norms, published by the DGFT. You are entitled to import those inputs under the advance authorization without payment of customs duty. So this is the facility available for exporters. Then there is another facility also for the exporter is EPCG scheme under Chapter 5 of the FTP, means Foreign Trade Policy. This allows even this capital goods, means machinery required for manufacture of the export goods, also can be imported at zero customs duty. Then very important aspect which most of the MSMEs or most of the exporters are not taking into account, they are ignoring or they are not knowledgeable about this scheme is interest subvention. This scheme is to boost MSME sector exports, provide interest subsidy on the post and pre shipment exports, and that interest rate means 5% subsidy on the interest rate. Means, for example, the bankers charges 12%. Then for MSMEs, it will be 12% minus 5%, means only 7% interest will be applicable. So that is the facilities given to the MSMEs who have been registered with MSME. Then MEIS, that scheme I already told you, that is a merchandise export from India scheme. For handicraft products also that scheme is applicable. And as per the scheme, the exporter can entitle for the duty scrips. That entitlement depends upon the product to product, and from the rate is from 2% to 7%, and some items also 10% now it is given. 2 to 7% or 10% of the FOB value of exports, the exporter will be entitled to get a duty scrip as per the para 3.02 of the foreign trade policy. Under the as per the duty scrip, he can import any of the items of his choice, and that duty payment on those items can be offset through this duty scrip. For example, you got the duty scrip for say 1 lakh rupees, and when you are imported goods, and there the means your applicable duty which you supposed to discharge is say 10 lakhs rupees. Since you have 1 lakh duty scrip, now you can exchange and offset this script of 1 lakh. Therefore, net payment of duty will be 9 lakhs. 10 minus 1, that is 9 lakhs. Only you have to pay. Mean that duty scrip can be offset for custom duty payment, your liability. If you are not interested to import any of the goods, and therefore that offset is not possible, then you have another option to transfer such scripts. Suppose you have the script worth of say a 1 lakh you have, and you can sell this script to somebody else who want to import. Of course, this 1 lakh script you can sell to him at 95,000 rupees, for example. And there is another scheme is called for the SEIS, but we are not discussing. That is for the service. And this MEIS scheme, as per the Appendix 3B of the Handbook of Procedure, for the different products they have provided what is the rate of MEIS. For handicraft products, these are the rates. Some of the rates I have calculated. So these are the MEIS rates for the handicraft products. Some of the sample I have shown to you, and there are, you see, the rates are varying from 5%, 7%, like that, 2% also. Like that, 2 to 7% the rates are applicable. Means once you are exported these items, for example, you are exporting wall lamps. For example, this is wall lamp. You are entitled for 5%. 5% of the FOB value, you are entitled for this script of the MEIS script, and that script can be utilized for offsetting the duty payment whenever you want to import any items, or you can sell to some others. Therefore, you can realize that amount. So these MEIS rates are like this. These are the various different MEIS rates. And then we'll come to the duty drawback. And for the handicrafts, this very beautiful and simple mechanism for refunding the taxes whatever you have suffered on the procurement. For example, you are exporting an item, and the duty drawback is, for example, 3%. Then after export, the 3% of the FOB value will be automatically deposited in your bank account after exports are been done. The rates are being generally done as per the AIR rates, means all industry rates. These have been published by the customs under the section 75 of the Customs Act 1962 and revised every annual basis. And some of the rates are like this: duty drawback rates for handicraft products. For example, these perfumes, perfumed agarbatti, for example, perfumed agarbatti, under this HSN code, the duty drawback is 3.9%. And 3.9% of the FOB value you will be getting as duty drawback, and after export, this duty drawback will be, the amount will be deposited to your bank account directly from the customs. So this is one of the benefits, and for handicrafts it is very useful, and the export scheme. So these are the various rates for this duty drawback. Then advance authorization, I told you, whenever you want to import your raw materials, packing materials or consumables without payment of customs duty, then you can adopt this advance authorization scheme. Under this advance authorization scheme, you are entitled to import raw materials, consumables, packing materials as per the SHIA norms. SHIA norms means standard input-output norms, and you can import under this authorization within 12 months from the date of the authorization, and it carries obligation for export. Minimum export obligation is 15%. Means suppose 100 you are imported, then minimum 115 you have to export, and that export is within 18 months you have to export. So this is about advance authorization. Then EPC scheme, for producing these handicraft products, you may require certain machineries. Those machines you can import under EPCG scheme, means export promotion capital goods, and without payment of customs duty, that is zero payment. And once you got the authorization, within 24 months you can import, and the export obligation is 6 times the duty amount which you have saved. Within a period of 6 years, you have to export and fulfill the obligation. Additionally, because the handicraft exporters are small exporters, it is very difficult for them to move around to the customs of this DGFT authorities and take proper applications, then all the types of obligations, etc. There is simplified procedure being adopted in the customs. That is, the goods required for manufacture of handicraft items for the export purpose is allowed at the nil rate of duty, subject to condition. That subject to condition means you supposed to be a member of the Export Promotion Council for Handicrafts, and they will provide. You have to apply to them through the application, and they will give the certificate. Against the certificate, you will be entitled to import the items at nil rate of duty. These are the items, for example, you can import on duty, nil rate of duty payment, subject to a certificate from the the Export Promotion Council of Handicrafts. And the conditions, you see, these are the conditions. The goods are imported by a manufacturer of handicrafts or by a merchant exporter tied up with the supporting manufacturer of handicrafts or on behalf of the said manufacturer or merchant exporter by the Export Promotion Council for Handicrafts. So these people can import the consignments items, and for use of the manufacture of the handicraft products for export. Of course, the cap also they mentioned, the value of the goods imported does not exceed 5% of the FOB value. That is maximum cap. So this is a facility that you can avail while you export imports of the required inputs or raw materials which are required to manufacture those export items. You can import. And also there is a facility under these notifications that you can even import the machinery or equipment for effluent treatment plant under the handloom sector, handicraft sector. Of course, on a provision of the certificate from the departments, that is the Export Promotion Council of Handicrafts. You can import these items, that effluent treatment plants or machineries, without payment of customs duty. So export is covered. Now little bit let us understand the imports also. Import as per the customs of this GST definition is bringing the goods into India from a place outside India. That is the definition of import of goods. And service, of course, we are not discussing. Means bringing the goods from outside India to India is called import. And import procedures, just I will glance, I will go it. And there is import, you have two options. One is clear the consignment for a home consumption on payment of duty, means you have to file the bill of entry for home consumption and you pay the applicable custom duty, then you take the consignment for home consumption. The other option is store under the bond, and you immediately don't want the consignment to be cleared, so you store the consignment under the bond, then you have to file the bill of entry into bond bill of entry, and you need not pay immediately any customs duty, but assessment will be done, the duty assessment will be done, but you need not pay immediately customs duty. Then after, as and when required, you have to file ex-bond bill of entry, then clear the consignment on payment of duty at the time of ex-bond. So this is the procedure: arrival of the consignment to the port, then filing of the bill of entry in ICE gate, then assessment. The assessment here will be done based on the RMS system. Accordingly, the inspection or examination depends. Then payment of the custom duty, then release the consignment, take the consignment for home consumption. The type of bill of entries, there are three types of bill of entries. One is bill of entry for home consumption, means on direct payment of the custom duty and take the consignment for home consumption. Then there is bill of entry for ex-bond, means after bond, after warehousing, you want to take ex-bond, release the consignment, then ex-bond bill of entry has to be filed. And then bill of entry for bond or warehouse, we have already discussed. So that there are three types of bill of entries. And the custom duty calculation, this is the custom duty calculation sheet. For example, the assessable value, the import CF value converted into Indian currency is, for example, 100. then the basic duty, say for example the rate of duty is 7.5%, applicable on accessible value, means on 100 7.5%, so it's 7.5. Then social welfare surcharge is applicable at 10% rate on basic custom duty, means on A. This is the basic, and 7.5 10% is applicable. This 7.5 10% is applicable, which is 0.75. Then depends upon your particular goods. The IGST, as per the applicability of the IGST, for example here I have taken 12%. So the 12%, this IGST will be applicable on A plus B plus C, means the aggregate of these three, the IGST will be applicable, means these three has to be aggregated on that 12%, which comes to say 30%. Then total custom duty will be basic custom duty plus social welfare surcharge plus IGST, which comes to B plus C plus D is this much. And out of it, IGST, of course, you can take ITC, means input tax credit is taken. It is allowed to take the input tax credit. So after this has been reduction from this, then this is the net duty applicable. So this is how the duty calculation has been done. And again, if any compensation cess is there, additionally the compensation cess also has to be paid on aggregate of these three: accessible value, basic custom duty, and social welfare surcharge. So for the duty calculation, there is a portal is there, IceGate. You can go visit this one and enter your HSN code or a brief description of your product. Then you can see what is the customs duty. You can understand from this IceGate. So this is how the complete procedure. Of course, export of handicrafts are very promising. Huge potential is there for export of handicraft products. And from India, handicraft products are increasing, exports are increasing by 6.44% year on year during the 2018 and 19 year period. And further, there is a huge promising potential is there for the export of these handicrafts. And mainly these handicraft products are going to these countries. These UK, UAE, Germany, France, Latin American countries, Italy, Netherlands, Australia, Canada, like this. There is a huge potential is there for the employment generation also, and as a whole increase the percentage of exports into the GDP. This is a good and huge potential for handicraft products export. The trend is seeing here. Let us hope, and our complete endeavor must be there on focus on the export of handicrafts. Thank you. And this is my presentation on the handicrafts products export customs procedure. And if you like the presentation, please click like and also subscribe the channel for free to receive the updates. I have published more than 60 YouTube channels and 70 slide share presentations on various topics. So enjoy by subscribing my channel. This is my channel link. And further, if you want any training or consultations on import and exports, foreign trade, international payment methods, financing, and GST or international contracts or project management or PMP certifications related, please contact me. I am SN Panigrahi. My contact details are here. Thank you.